But yesterday we learned in our class. This is Likut. We're learning Torah Ohr. Torah Ohr, a book written by the first Rebbe of Chabad, and he's explaining to us in this discourse, at least one concept which is mentioned in our Torah portion, which our Torah portion is Vayechi. And in Vayechi, Yaakov blesses all of his sons, and he gives a blessing to Yehuda. And Yehuda is going to be, the Moshiach is going to come from Yehuda. And that's very, very implicit from the blessing that he gives. Lo Yisur Shevet mi Yehuda, Mechokek mi ben Raglav, says that Yehuda is going to be Adki of Oshilo. The Shevet is the leader, the old leadership will always be in the hands of Yehuda until it comes Shiloh, which is the Mashiach, that the thing is Shalom. What is this thing? All of a sudden get this thing stuck over here. This is a new addition. I don't know if you can see this. Can we get this? Close dock. Oh, there we go. Good. Okay. So then it says also, okay, Mashiach, that's pretty good. He's going to be Mashiach. So Mashiach is going to change the whole world. But then it says that he's going to tie up he'll drink this wine and wash his garments in wine. And then there's going to be, he'll tie his donkey to a vine, and to the Geffen Iro to a vine. He'll tie up his Iro. Iro means like a young donkey or something. And L'Sareka into another sort of a very thin vine or whatever. And each one of these vines is going to have enough grapes to fill the burden of one donkey or one young donkey and everything. So what is it talking about? What does it mean? So the Rebbe explains, no, this is all talking about the days of the Mashiach. And that the wine that's going to come out, this wine that's going to come out, is wine that we can also produce now. What is the wine? The wine is love of God. And the resultant joy which we have from this love of God. And the Rebbe explained that there's two different types of love of God. One that produces joy, and the other one that produces immediately. First, in order to get to the joy, you have to have bitterness. One is joy are for people who don't have many problems. They're already thinking about God all the time, and they're already connected to God, and they're interested in God, and they want to serve the Creator. And this, they just have to think a little bit. And that reveals their true wine. That reveals the true love that every Jew has for God. But then there's other Jews that they, that they have to wash their dirty garments. They have bad thoughts, bad speech, bad action. They're selfish, egotistical. They do what they want, they say what they want, they think what they want. And that covers over this love. So they have to have what's called red wine. The other one was white wine. They have to have red wine. This red wine, this washes their garments, the thought, speech, and action. And even more, he said that garments are also the commandments. The commandments are higher than even this love. Love is like wings and joy. That's the wings for the commandments that elevate them, give them more content, soul. But the fact is that the commandments are higher than any emotions that we can possibly have for God, any appreciation that we can have for God. They're more connected to the essence of God than our, I say, the love or awe that we have of God. So that's what the Rebbe says. Nowadays we have prayer. Prayer is elevating our soul, arousing our emotions, our appreciation of God. That's what prayer is. We think about God. We think about how God's creating the world, that God is creating us. We think about all the things. You translate the prayers, simple English, or if you're another nationality, simple French, simple whatever, German, Russian, whatever language you are, and just think about what is being said in the prayers, right? Most of them are prayers of King. I don't know if any of you have ever seen a Jewish prayer book, but it's a bit long, it's a bit long in the Jewish prayer book. And if you say it thinking about the words that you're saying, so it takes, bare minimum, it takes, a half an hour to go from the beginning to the end. Bare minimum, if you're just, saying it in English, it'll take that long. But if you think about it, it takes, then there's deeper and deeper thought because you're talking about God. So that arouses your emotions. You're actually talking to God and you're praising God and you're in awe of God and you're asking God. And like I said, there's deeper and deeper meanings. That's prayer. It says that's arousing your soul to the Creator. But all of that is sort of personal. It's sort of what you understand. But the sacrifices, all the commandments, especially the sacrifices, but all the commandments, that is the essence will of God. And it's above understanding. In fact, the fact that it's above understanding shows how high it is. It's not a level that you can grasp. It's above being grasped. Like we always bring the simple example, life. You can understand all these aspects about life and philosophy and poetry and things, but life itself, right? Life itself is above. You can write beautiful songs about life and make people cry, and make new movies, whatever, volumes, and you can explain life, right? Kabbalah books about life, about spirit, about everything, right? Kabbalah books, but that's not life itself. Life itself is something that's totally incomprehensible. The same thing, and it's because it's higher. It's higher than all these Kabbalah ideas. One second. Excuse me, 1 minute. Let me close the door. So here we're talking about God. For sure, God is the source of life. So for sure, that's higher. And that God is the source of life, that's just a lower aspect of God. So the sacrifice, the sacrifices, specifically on the commandments in general, they come from the source of life, from the essence of God's will. Okay. So that's what we're saying. That just like wine has to come out, you have to squeeze it a little bit, and as the wine comes, the best wine comes from the lower grapes. So you have to humble yourself, and you have to also break your heart. What does it mean, break your heart? To start thinking about, listen, maybe I'm not God. Maybe I can't do whatever I want to, say whatever I want to. Maybe I'm making a big mistake. That breaks your heart. Okay. So, but the mitzvahs, the commandments are infinitely higher. Commandments. And that is in fact what Adam had. When Adam came into the world, Adam, the first man, so God put him into the world. He had tremendous appreciation for God, but God put him into the world la'avda u'lashamra, to work on it. What happened? My pointer, where's my fire pointer? Huh? Oh, there we go. But the main service of God, la'avda u'lashamra, like God said to Adam, the first man, he put him in Gan Eden, la'avda u'lashamra, to work on it and to protect it. This is the positive commandments and the negative commandments. But the main service of God is going to be in the days of the Mashiach. Like we said so many times before, main thing of Mashiach is to activate the Jews so that they do the commandments. Because the commandments are infinitely higher than any appreciation we can possibly have of God. But tefillah, what about prayer nowadays? This is the elevating of our soul. Who can negate a korbanos is just like in the place of the sacrifices. It's not the sacrifices themselves. Because the sacrifices, in addition to being God's will, and you're doing something which is incomprehensible, but the fact is when we do a commandment, and especially the sacrifices, which that in a way is the ultimate commandment, because they can only be done in the Holy Temple. That elevates Elias Kol Olamos. This elevates all of the worlds. God, so to speak, is put us into this world only for this, to do with the world, the physical world, in this case, animals, and elevate them to do what he wants to with his creation. Why God wants these things, right? You can look in Kabbalah books, it gives all sorts of explanations, but the main explanation is because that's what God wants. We're doing what God wants. That's the point. Above and beyond any metaphorical or Kabbalistic or mystical or whatever explanations you can give. You're doing what God wants. And that elevates all of the worlds. What does it mean, all the worlds? The whole entire creation suddenly has a purpose. You're using the creation for what the Creator wanted. Bichlal and in general. Even the animal soul, Yoredis Lamata, Laoretz, comes down below. So in other words, prayer elevates you, but nothing like the sacrifices used to elevate everyone. But to remember, though, when the sacrifices were done, you did just you also had to have a certain awareness, arousal, emotions, an intimate connection with the Creator. You couldn't just bring a sacrifice and say, okay, now, maybe I'll bring 10 sacrifices so I can do, I'll what do you say, pay up front. I'll do 10 sacrifices and then I can do sins later on. I'll bring of course not. The whole idea of the sacrifices was because you realize I want to do what God wants. And from then on, you start to do what God wants. Why do you do what God wants? Because you realize what God is, that you're just a creation and God is creating you. I want to do what's right. On this levels of grapes and wine, Namar, it says, okay, so now we finished the thing about, more or less, about wine, which is joy, love of God, how it washes the garments of the commandments. Right? Afterwards, it says he ties up Asri Legefen to the vine, Iro, his donkey. Okay, what does this mean? Perish b'yamot Mashiach, in the days of the Mashiach, that we said before. Remember that then man will be complete. Can I get to this? Have I access to this thing? 1 second. And man will be complete. I want to change the page for sure. Okay. Oh, here we go. If you remember last time we said Mashiach comes, so we'll do the commandments. Well, we're doing the commandments now. He said, yeah, the commandments will be the same, but we'll be different. We'll do it, and we'll do the commandments with more awareness of whose commandments we're doing. That's it. Remember we said Adam is man. It's not going to be completed until Mashiach comes. Adam is the first initials. The initials, Aleph is Adam, Dalet is David, and Mem is Mashiach. So man will only be completed whole when Mashiach comes. And the whole essence of what man is, Jews, is to do the commandments. And that's what we'll be doing. We'll be doing exactly what God wants in this world that'll elevate the world. As then Klal Yisrael, all the Jewish people, will be mitalim, elevated, b'ma'ale elyona, in a very highest level. Sheyeh b'bechinas gefen. They will be in this level of the vine, v'yayin, and wine, amasameach. Remember we said that the Jewish people, they were like the grapes. Gefen mimitzrayim tasiyah, it says. The Jewish people are like the grapes, and inside of them is this wine. Inside of every Jew, this is the wine, which is the joy of the commandments. Hidden inside of every Jew is this deep, 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 deep appreciation of God, and especially of God's commandments, that we are so happy to be responsible, and that we can repay God by doing what God wants, namely elevating the whole world by doing the commandments. That's what the commandments are. That gives us tremendous joy, and even more, it gives God joy. It says that God becomes happy. Nachat ruach, it says. Reach nichoach, that God gets nachat ruach. When we do God's commandments, it says nachat ruach, especially that says by the sacrifices. The sacrifices is the ultimate commandment. Okay, so it says, that's why we so desperately want the holy temple, so we'll be able to do the commandments, especially this amazing commandment of sacrifices, even though now it seems to be pretty primitive, barbaric. But if you think about it, just the whole basic idea that God is making the world, that's pretty primitive. I mean, God hasn't got anything better to do than to make, whatever it is, the slums and the wars and things like that, and terrible people. And the whole thing is not understandable, but God has put the Jews here to make it at least a little bit, yes, understandable, but the main thing is to make it happy, to make the world a happy world. The Jews have the secret of happiness. The commandments. We can actually do what God wants with his creation, and we're part of his creation. That in the future, when Moshiach comes, man will be complete. Then we'll see that the Jews are the source of joy for the whole entire world. But God also, then they will be tied to the Geffen. They'll be tied to the Geffen. Iro, his young donkey. Iro is a donkey. Okay, what does it mean he'll be tied? First of all, the word for tied is not asuri. Rashi explains over there that sometimes it's a grammatical thing. They do it. He brings examples, but generally it's not. The word for being tied is asur. To be tied, what says asuri with a yud after it? Will be tied to the letter yud. Shebechinit yud, the first letter of God's name, which shows on this highest aspect of God, which is called Chachma Ilah. God's was called upper wisdom, the upper source of the source of life. Chachma is above understanding. Bina is understanding, and Chachma is above that. This will be Asur Makasher. We will be tied and connected to this Geffen, to the Jewish people, which is the Geffen. We said the Jewish people are the grapes. So it'll be Asur. So we can read it like this: Asar Yud. We will tie up the Yud, legeffen, to the Jewish people who are the Geffen. That's what does it mean? Chachma. This Yud is the level of Chachma. It is bechinit bittul, total surrender to God. Shetzorech liot b'hasimcha. It has to be in joy, like we said before. B'lo nacham elokim derech eretz pelishtim. Okay, and this joy, it has to be in God. Listen, it's possible to get joy from all sorts of other things. Temporary joy. You take drugs, and it's temporary, and you get happy. Right? You get happy, but it's not really true happiness. It's misguided happiness. You're misusing your power of happiness. How do you say, the lightning? You're short-circuiting, huh? Short-circuiting. There used to be people, I think there still is. They know how to steal cars, so they can go into a car, and they can. What do they used to? They used to have a word for it. Anyway, short-circuit the car. They somehow or other they bypass the key. And they can hotwire. Oh, that's it. Hotwire the car, and they would steal the car by hotwiring. The same thing is you can hotwire joy. Instead of having the normal key to joy, which is thinking about God and thinking about how happy you are that God is creating you and how happy you are you can do what God wants, you can hotwire it so you get joy from taking a drug, for going to a nightclub, for doing. Says when Mashiach comes, then will be usher. Every single Jew will be attached to this yud, to the source of all life, all being, and will be totally connected and devoted to this yud. The yud is what's called surrender to the creator of the universe, to the truth. They said, by means of this will be the level of iro. So again, what's the sentence? Asuri legefen iro. He will tie the yud to the geffen, which is the Jewish people. Iro, his young donkey. Okay, what's this young donkey? Let's take the word iro. The iro, this can be translated Sovil base Perusian. It can be ear, like the same seems to be the meaning over here. Ear means a donkey. Ear para adam. Says a man is put. What this is a sentence from? What is it from? From Proverbs, I think. Not from Proverbs or Ecclesiastes. I forgot. I looked it up and I forgot. Okay. Ir para adam. It says a man is a wild. From Ecclesiastes it comes from. Let me look it up one second. It says Ecclesiastes is Kehelet. Here we go. Excuse me, 1 minute, one moment. Here, per Adam Yivoled, that is. I'm sorry, big mistake. It's in Job. It's in the book of Job. Job. You ever read the book of Job? Pretty strange book. Job gets afflicted with all these terrible afflictions, and he has 3 friends that come, and they try to explain to him he must have done something wrong. Something you have to read the book. It's a very bizarre book because, in the fact, the matter he really did not do anything wrong. Ir para Adam. So it says a wild donkey man is born. That's a sentence. Man is born like a wild donkey. That's one thing. An ir means a wild donkey, a donkey. And then there's ir means a city. A city. Ir Elohim, the city of God. Let's explain this. Ir para Adam yivoled kasiv. It says a wild donkey man is born. Perish yivoled. What does it mean? He was born. Hainu ki she ha midot etzlo. When a person's emotions, his personality, ki toldato, like when he was born, vetivo, and their nature, shalon nefcho, they have not been transformed, etzlo by him, lamod negativo, a person has not been able to stand against his nature. Ki zeh avodat adam. This is the whole idea of service of man. Lamod negativo, to stand against his nature. Hakasheh. Right? Man, every person is born with faults. That's why God did it. I don't know why God did it that way, but God did do it that way. I mean, actually, it says why God did it that way, because he wants us, that's our challenge, by standing against our own emotions and transforming our own natural desires and urges and how do you say, what is it? And the feelings as therefore, then you start to become a human being, right? Nowadays in America, I mean, it's just shocking what's going on, that they're made their natural desires, whatever they have, whatever pops into their mind, especially sexual desires, they become like God. Whatever you want, that's what's right. Whatever you think you are, that's who you are, right? Throw intellect to the winds. There's no intellect. Science and intellect has become a servant of feelings, right? Feelings, you have to have feelings is the main thing. And anybody who disagrees with my feelings, I get all angry. That's another feeling, right? You want to have your feelings, okay, but at least enter into debate. No more debate. Right? Feelings. So every person is naturally, and this is appealing. This is appealing. Like I say, the Nazis used to say, think with your arms, think with your legs. Right? Don't think with your head. Go in and just kill. Go get killed. Doesn't make any difference. Your feelings, forget about your mind. This is, well, the essence of a human being is, that's, by the way, another reason for anti-Semitism. There's a lot of reasons for anti-Semitism. And one of the reasons for anti-Semitism is that the Jews are telling everybody what to do. They have the Torah, and the Torah says you can't do this and you can't do that, and you have to do this and you have to do that, and you have to honor your parents, and you can't kill and you can't steal. And that's what the Jews say. And everybody else says, who are you to tell me what to do? You're going to tell me what to do? So the Jews say, listen, I'm not doing it. God is doing it. Oh, that's even worse. You're saying you're the representatives of God. But that's the fact, is it's true that God, in fact, creates us with nature, and we have to transform our nature. Everybody does, right? Some people don't have a bad temper. They just have lust. Some people don't have bad temper or lust. They just get depressed. Some people don't have all three. They just get angry. They have whatever it is, the jealousy. They get jealous. So a person has to transform his emotions transform himself to stand against his nature. Which simply means instead of thinking about what I want and what I feel, you think about what does God want, what God feels. And because God creates me, so that should dominate. Instead of getting mad at someone that cuts me off, right? Let's say I'm driving, it gets me up. Get mad at God. God made this. And on the other hand, how can I get mad at God? He's creating me. He's giving me everything for free. He gave me my car. He gave me everything. I'm going to get mad at God. But at this person, for sure, you can't get mad. God arranged the whole thing. And so it is with everything, right? Everything that happens, God is arranging it. I just have to understand how to react properly. There's some things where there's no way you can react in a normal way. A person's in the Holocaust. What's he supposed to do? Think positively. Do whatever you can. There's a lot of things we can't understand. But one thing we can surely understand, everything that happens, God is making it happen. Says, Zeu, this is avodas Adam. That's what a man is. Lamod negativa, to go against his nature, a kasher, his hard nature, because he loves God and he fears God. Which is not the case because Teva Messiah, which is not the case if a person is naturally doesn't have a bad temper, naturally doesn't have any lust. So this is not really complete service of God, but nikra ir para adam. Then it's called a wild man. But when he has to work on himself and he has to tie to the vine and he has to crush himself a little bit and bring out this wine, a yotzim gefen that comes out by means of duricha, by means of trampling, what does it say, breaking his heart, and ragleos, and has to have humility. Like we said, Azna bechinas ira, hey, the city of God. This is the bechinas ir, the city of hey is the last letter of God's name. City of. So Asri means he ties to the letter Yud, and here it becomes Ir, the city of God. What's the city of God mean? A city is made up of a lot of bricks. The city of God is made up of a lot of letters of God's name. If you look at the world and you say this world is just a city which is made from God's name, from God's letters, God's power of creation, his speech, then everything becomes totally different. Like the rabbis say, when is God called great? When he is in the city of God. Okay, so what are we talking about here? What are we saying? We are put in the world in order to change the world, and we're part of the world to change ourselves. And when we do that, everything becomes clean. It's almost like a person cleaning his glasses, right? We're born in the world with dirty glasses, and we act accordingly, right? We act accordingly. As soon as you clean the glasses off, oh, look, I see there's a world, and it's not even glasses. It's like when there's kaleidoscopes, you look inside of it. It's all sorts of totally, you're not seeing reality at all. A person cleaning himself up a little bit and getting rid of his bad emotions and his bad ideas and his selfishness and his egotism and his lusts and the drives and his wills and his urges and things like this. And he starts to think, listen, I want to do what God wants. God wants me to be active. God wants me to be dynamic. He wants me to be vital, to be alive, to be happy. That's what God wants. He wants me to have a family. He wants me to have a job. He wants me to be honest. He wants me to be truthful. He wants me to be helpful, to take the world and use the world for what God wants. That's what he wants me to do. By means of this, it says, it makes Ir Elokeinu, the whole world becomes the city of God. Okay, that's the first sentence, right? Osri legefen iro. Osri, we said, you want to go back to the original sentence? Anyway, Osri legefen iro. Osri means he ties up to the letter Yud. Here, let's go back to the first sentence. Let's go back, come on. Here, just to make it clear for everybody. Here, see. Here. Asri, that's what it means. Asri, he ties up the Yud to the Geffen, to the Jewish people. Iro, and then he makes also a city, Hey, of God. Huh? Pretty good. Next, Usreika. I hope we have time that we'll do this. But this is pretty nice. This is pretty interesting. Here we go. Let me get my pointer over here. Okay. Okay, then afterwards it says, Ulusreka b'nei asano. Where is this? Ulusreka. Ulusreka b'nei astono. That's what it says. And to the sreka, sreka means like a young sprout or a young branch or something like that, a soft branch, pliable branch of of a vine. B'nei asono, his like a young donkey. Okay, so it says l'sureka. Sureka is a zmura raka. It's a thin branch of a vine. A vine. V'yolda she'anavea v'yolda, and it's young. She'anavea mu'atim. It hasn't got many grapes yet. U'me'at yain, and a little bit of wine that comes out of it. Only a little bit of wine. Okay, so there's sureka is like a shuruk. Okay, what is a shuruk? So I want to show you something here. There's what's called a segel and a shuruk. These are two punctuation, or the pronunciation marks. What do they call vowels? I want to call it. And a shuruk is pronounced u, and a segel is pronounced eh, like this. A segel is 3 dots. Can you see this here? 3 dots, 2 dots on the top, 1 dot on the bottom. See here? That's a segel. Can I make it bigger? Yeah, bigger, you can see. Anyway, that's a segel. A segel is 2 dots on the top. See, look at the word geffen. Geffen. That's a segel. And a shuru, I'm sorry. Segel, right, segel. That's a segel. And a shuruk looks like this. Here we go. See, I did a little. Here we go. This is a shuruk. See? 3 dots. 1, 2, 3. One below the other. That's a shuruk. Huh? What do you say? Shuruk. And a segel is 3 dots, but you have 2 on the top, 1, 2, and 3rd is on the bottom. It's like an upside down pyramid. But this is what the shuruk looks like. 3 dots. It's pronounced u. Sometimes it can be written like this also. Also, sometimes it's called a ma'ulfum. Shuruk. Okay, this is a shuruk. Here we go. No. Well, I hope that worked. That's pretty good. Okay. Okay, segel. So we're going to say there's 2 different types of attitude toward God. Segel, that's like a person who's settled. He's like a tzaddik. That's a segel. 2 dots on the top, 1 on the bottom, in the middle. It's on the bottom, but it's between the 2 on the top. This here is called segel. Okay, you can see, like it says, Geffen mitzrayim tasiya, kasu harim tzila. Tzila, this is the sail. This is the shadow of God. And this is a sentence from Psalms. Like it says, Hashem tzilcha. God is your shadow. Hainu yoshet choshet sitro. The God makes darkness his hiding place. Hua ola lamayla. This goes above. Umechaseh, and covers over even the mountains, which is this Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And there was a tremendously high level of God. That is what is called God's shadow. Okay, so from the shadow of God, from the darkness of God, the incomprehensibility of God, comes the avos. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, 3 fathers. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that's like these 3 levels of a segel. That's the Geffen. That's the Jewish people. They were the founders of the Jewish people. So we have 2 dots on the top and 1 dot in the middle, but below them. Sureka, this shuruk, this is also nekudas. This is like a sureka. This is also like a shuruk. This what is hinted at in this sentence over here, that he's going to tie his young mule or whatever to the sureka. This is talking about another level of God, and this whole business is talking about what's going to be. It's hinting at what's going to be inside of the Jews, the change that's going to occur in the inside of the Jews when Mashiach comes. Just to remember, just to stress again, the Rebbe is saying the main change, at least in the beginning when Mashiach comes, is going to be, how do you say, the attitude of the Jewish people. The world is going to be the same world. Nature will be, the commandments will be the same commandments. The Torah will be the same commandments, the same Torah. But everything's going to be new. What's going to be new? Because the attitude of the Jews toward God is going to be new, then everything is going to be new. Suddenly we'll feel the godliness in all the commandments. We'll feel the godliness in the world. All humanity will feel that God is creating them. They'll feel happy. So there's two ways of doing this. One way is a regular, normal, based way of feeling God. That's like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob had. That's like the level of a segel. Orderly, two on the top, one in the middle. But the shuruk, which that's what's being spoken about in the sentence, this is what's called, this is the vowel, the punctuation mark, which is called the shuruk. Like I just showed you, the three dots, one below the other. A shuruk also has three points that the segel has, the same 3 points, right? A segel has 3 points, and the shuruk has 3 points. But they're one below the other. Remember what I just showed you. When a person is close, and he's close and he's excited about God, and these 3 points, like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, we said is love, fear, and faith of God, from below to above and from above to below, and there's one in the middle. The shuruk is like a pyramid, we said. A pyramid, we can say it's pointing down, or we can say that it's like a funnel, that the bottom is narrow and the top is wide, but nevertheless it's orderly. There's one in the middle and two on the top. Like it says, Azai, then it's called a segel. That's an orderly way of serving God, like the tzaddikim do, the righteous Jews. When a person feels that he's far away from God, but he just has the surrender alone, he knows that he's far away from God. He becomes subdued and humble. And his heart can't bring any of the power in his heart, the geshet, to come close to God, because he's like nothing. That's called like a shuruk. It says that the Mashiach is going to make the tzaddikim do tshuva. Why? Because they'll see how great he is. I'm just reminded of a story. The previous rabbi of Bnei Brak, his name was Rabbi Moshe Landau. Rabbi Moshe Landau, he was the son of Rabbi Yaakov Landau, who was before him, and I knew them all. I used to live in Bnei Brak. They were very special people, and they were like, how do you say, like royalty almost. They just by look, they were very, down to earth people, but they were, first of all, they knew a lot of Torah. They were very strong in their opinions about Torah, but also they were very stately. Oh, that's the word, stately. Very stately people. And they had people that, especially the simple Jews that were in Bnei Brak, they loved them. They just loved. Anyway, so once Rabbi Moshe Landau, he went to the Rebbe. I was there. He went to the Rebbe. He was by the Rebbe. This must have been in like the 80s or whatever. And he must have taken a bunch of his people along with him. A lot of them were like very sort of simple Jews. They were simple Jews, a lot of businessmen, whatever. And of course, in 770 it was packed, when the Rebbe was speaking, especially, it was just totally packed. So the Rabbi Landau, when he was walking on the streets of Bnei Brak, he was like, like a royalty. But by there, he was in front of the Rebbe. Everybody was equal nothing. As I remember, people were pushing him, and he started yelling. This one fellow said, "Du stoppst the Rebbe. You're pushing the rabbi. You're pushing the great rabbi." And Rabbi Landau just turned to him and said, "Be quiet. Nobody here is a big rabbi." In front of the Rebbe, everyone was simple. right? It was simple. Even the greatest, the biggest geniuses. In front of the Rebbe, there were certain people that were the Rebbe showed tremendous, love to and appreciation to. And so those people, but nevertheless, okay, I'm not coming to compare people, but it says the Mashiach is going to come and he's going to make even the biggest tzaddikim do tshuva. Everybody all of a sudden is going to feel far away from God. Right? Whatever idea they had of what God was, they felt far away. That, by the way, was the whole genius of the Arizal. They had tremendous humility. They knew how far away they were from God, and all the ideas they got and the awareness was just gifts that God gave them. Same with the prophets. All the prophets, they were great people, but their humility is what brought them these revelations of godliness, prophecy. They didn't get prophecy because they were such big geniuses and they rose up to these tremendously high levels of awareness. They were professors in Judaism or whatever. It was from simplicity. They've realized how infinitely far away they are from God. That's this thing of a shuruk, far away. Each point is below the other one. Kalomer shemashpil, he lowers himself down below, and he feels when Mashiach comes, you'll feel how far away you are in your own eyes. When he says, Mi anochi, who am I? By means of this, Naseh will become the level of atono. What does it mean? Atono, b'nei atono. B'nei atono, the son, b'chinas ben, he'll become like the son of God. Banim atem, sons of God. You'll reveal this fact that your whole existence comes from God, and even more comes from this inner aspect of God. That's the Jewish people. They're all called sons of God. Liot, to be, como bra karad avua, like it says, a son is like the leg of his father. Just like the leg of a person that just does whatever the person wants. That's what we feel that we are. Also, a leg has no particular personality, right? Unless you're a reflexologist, but generally speaking, the feet, you can't tell very much about a person from his foot. From his face, you can tell, right? When they have in the FBI lineups or whatever, they don't take pictures of people's feet. It's people's faces. The faces look different. It says, well, a son is like the foot of his father. All this will be by means of what we said before, washing in wine his garments. Washing means avar. He washed already. That the completion of the days of the Mashiach and the completion of what man is, Adam, to be Ira, to make himself and the world into a city of God, and to make himself and to reveal the fact that he is a son of God. Who al Yadei is by means of Shekavar, that he already washed his garments in wine of exile. In these 2,000 years of exile, we had to fight against our own urges. We had to fight against all the obstacles from outside and inside, all the temptations and all of this. That crushed us. Al Yadei Avodaseinu, by means of our service now, in the time of exile, the Ohr to arouse this love, crushing ourselves and bringing out the true love of God, which is inside of us, hidden inside of us, the simcha shel mitzvah and the joy of being able to do God's commandments by means of all this awareness of God, despite or even because of all the suffering and the difficulties that the Jewish people have been through, and the temptations and the confusion, the frustrations, the unanswered prayers, broken hearts, and the tragedies that have occurred. And nevertheless, we're holding on to God. We've had Simcha Shel Mitzvah. Hithapcha will transform this darkness to light. And this is the whole purpose of the days of the Mashiach. Kaniska Le'el. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe wrote, and I think it was a diary, that he said, no, I'm sorry, it wasn't. It was a letter that he wrote to the Nasi. It's a whole story, but and not to be told now. And he wrote that, maybe I'll tell the story. There was the president of Israel. In Hebrew, the word for president is the Nasi. The Nasi. So the Rebbe wrote a letter to the Nasi. I don't remember who it was back then. Maybe it was Shazar or someone. He was the president of Israel. He said, excuse me for not calling you Nasi. The word Nasi also means the king. In Mishnah, whatever, when it says the Nasi, it means the king. in Horayot for the king. So he said, please excuse me for not calling you Nasi. He said, because in my life, I've learned that there's only one Nasi, king, and that's the Mashiach. And therefore I cannot call you Nasi because I reserved that term only for the Mashiach. He says, before I went to school, you know, there's a Rebbe saying, before he was 3 years old, I already had it woven in my imagination how the Mashiach will come, and he'll explain all of the suffering of the Jewish people from all these generations. All the generations. Now, the suffering of the Jewish people, if it was before the Rebbe, this was before even World War I that the Rebbe had it. And so he already had it woven in his mind. Mashiach is going to come and explain all the suffering. And that's what the Rebbe is saying here. One explanation for the suffering, and if you ask me, it's not a very sufficient. I mean, it'll have to be something really amazing. But to explain this, but he says one is the suffering is that the Jewish people strengthen their connection with their true inner self, their true connection to godliness. And that's true joy and true love, which is above and beyond any of the confusion and the Mayim Rabim, the turbulent waters and troubles and difficulties of this world. So that's what the Rebbe says. It'll arouse this love, this joy, wash our garments, and that we can come to transform the whole world into the city of God. All right, now let's do the Devar Malchut.